Hi, this is Pierre Decote working at Planet Technologies. I'm experimenting my new microphone that my son let me borrow. So, I wanted to talk about what kind of change management activities you could provide during the launch of a project. So, here are some recommendations. I will highly suggest you to organize some office hour sessions prior to the launch. This is really important to debunk some anxiety, and the context of office hours is to organize a session where people can chime in whenever they want. You just organize a time frame where people can come either in a room if it's in a physical world, or in a Teams meeting if it's a virtual world, and people can come ask questions. They will have questions prior to the launch because they're gonna hear from the project, maybe through an email. Maybe an email is not enough. They have questions, so they'll come, especially people with anxiety will come and ask questions, and you'll be able to answer those questions. So really, office hours prior to the launch, not a long time prior to the launch. You want to do that or maybe a week before or 10 days before the launch, so they can come and ask any questions and you'll be there. And another important factor about the office hours, people feel more comfortable to come to office hours than other sessions because there won't be a huge crowd. Since you're coming whenever you want, maybe you have one or two people who want to ask a question at the same time, so they will feel more comfortable asking questions to the project team without having to expose themselves to, a lot of people. Then, just before the launch, maybe a few days before, you can organize a showcase. So this is, there's other exception for that. Can be lunch and learns or name it whatever you want, but the goal of a showcase is to showcase the benefits of the technology. So you're going to show some features, some important features that have an impact on people. You don't showcase the technology for the technology. You try to focus on where people are really impacted positively, and you show the value for them, what's in it for them. And that helps to initiate excitement. So after decreasing the anxiety, you initiate excitement. So you play on both psychological, triggers, anxiety and excitement. And then you launch. That means you enable the solution to all the employees, or part of the employees are impacted by the launch. And then when you launch a product, a new service, people really gonna have a lot of questions. They might have questions, and why is it not working? How do you do this? How do you do that? How can I find information on this subject, and so on? So it's less about the question around the project. Most of the time it's going to be questions about, features, about the technology, about their context using the technology. They might have feedback to share already, but most of the time it's really questions. So office hours are there also to reassure them and answer their questions, their first questions, so they can go back be back on track in their day-to-day work. Maybe some are struggling because they have some issues. I will say 10% of the issues are probably technical issues, so you might want to fix them through the help desk, but 90% of the questions are more how-to questions, people not finding their bearings, people because they missed the previous communication, they didn't get it, they didn't have time to get it, they didn't see the mail because it was buried in other emails. So until it's coming, people don't take a lot of attention to your communication. Even if you do a showcase, they might miss the showcase. So they're gonna come with questions. And what is important during those office hours, prior and after, especially after the launch, you need to log the questions. And you need to log the answers, so because this is a knowledge base, so you can take advantage of that for other users, and log this in a team, for example, where people can have access to all the questions and all the answers are in a social network, if it's easier for you, if you have a social network, but somewhere where people can see all the questions and see the answers that were given. And even sometimes other people, not the project team, will answer those questions. And so after these office hours, try also to reorganize the showcase, just to be sure that people missed the showcase prior to the launch, they can still see the benefits, and you reinforce excitement. You might have some questions just like the office hours during this showcase, but don't spend too much time of that, because the focus is really to demonstrate what are the benefits. And also you can adjust your showcase regarding the questions you had during the office hours. You might want to insist on messages or features that were not clear prior to the launch, and you discovered during the office hours there were a lot of questions around, I don't know how to use this feature. I have one example. With several customers, I had the same findings. So now we integrated directly. But we discovered during the office hours, people, we were retiring WebEx and launching Teams, and people were, were saying, but does this mean I won't be able to join a WebEx? What if my partner or a customer invite me to WebEx? I won't be able to join the WebEx, and so on. So that kind of feedback, you don't realize that, because it seems, as in a project team, it seems obvious to you, but it's not obvious for people. And so you adjust the communication, and you adjust maybe the showcase to reassure people that no, you won't lose access to WebEx. You won't be able to anymore to organize WebEx. So that kind of feedback is really useful to adjust the message, to adjust the communication, to adjust your demonstrations. And then after, you can try to train people who really need it, who really will have a return or investment in attending a training. You cannot obviously train all the company. That has no meaning, no sense to do that. It's not efficient. So usually what you do, you train on specific usages, or maybe specific questions that are really complicated to explain by a communication, or even on the phone. You want to show how people usually use cases is a set of tasks that are organized in a certain way. So you need to help people to understand how to achieve those tasks, and you upskill people, and you focus really on people who really have a return investment. And sometimes, and I will recommend that this training, you should do it prior to the launch for a dedicated population called the champions. So you can use the same pattern with champions, and and train them ahead of time, give them access to the platform ahead of time, anticipating the questions. Through their questions, you will anticipate their peer questions. And also the champions being trained prior to the launch, general launch, will be very helpful to scale the change for many reasons. The first one is that it's another headcount to support the launch, to support the transformation that you have trained prior to the change, and they will be able to use this pattern and do the office hours, do the showcase, do the training. And the benefit of that is not only they will scale the change, helping the project team, but also they will translate what they learned into the wordings, into their day-to-day tasks. They will translate it in an operational learning experience or informative experience. They will adapt the content you provided as a project team to their peers. It might not do exactly what you've done, but it's good because they know how people are working around them. They know what they need. They know where they need to focus. And probably the project team doesn't know as well as they do. So that's why we highly recommend to use a champions team. So that's really the pattern I really recommend around the launch. Here it's a global launch, but you can imagine it's exactly the same pattern with a champions launch, and you can do exactly the same thing first with the champions and then globally. And definitely the champions will help to scale the change. And really, to me, there's really two key things here. Is office hours are really key around the launch, especially around the launch time, because first it decreases anxiety, then you get the feedback of what are the main questions, and then you can adjust your plan. You can adjust what you're going to show. You can adjust what you're going to train on. It's really essential to have those office hours combined with the showcase and eventually the training, depending on how many people you want to train. But this is the best way to have a feedback loop on how people receive the change and where they're struggling to adjust the change. And also, you cannot do that all the time, but I will recommend to reuse this pattern every at least trimester, where you just showcase not the technology anymore, but maybe use cases, maybe where people were successful in using the technology. And also you can have office hours to ask people where they struggled and use this information to reshape how you showcase or how you train. And finally, so every trimester you can do that, because the cloud is changing so fast that you will have to do that. But also to avoid the blank space in between those sessions, you need to use the same pattern to have discussion, to have a dialogue with your end users. So especially for the office hours, what I really recommend is to have a way to ask questions, so anybody can ask questions and anybody can answer, including the project team, the help desk team, but other people, the champions, can answer those questions. So you can use either Teams, so especially when you're deploying Teams, that might be a good way, or you can use another channel like a social network if you have a social network, but find a way to keep this dialogue, those questions that needs to have answers. And also you need to have some feedback. And for the equivalent with a showcase is I really encourage you to encourage your either your champions, but even anybody within the enterprise who have the willing to share the knowledge, to shoot some short video of what they did so they can showcase. And by, just like I'm doing now, just like shooting a video on how they handle these issues or this problem or this need with the solution, and share this video broadly in the same channel, either a team or a social network, so they can showcase their knowledge. So use this pattern as an ongoing pattern in an asynchronous world. So within Teams is a good way to achieve this, and keep those questions going and keep those answers. Be sure no question is left without an answer. Shoot the video when you think that you can answer this question or showcase something you want, you think it's important for them, and share it in this environment. So that's really a matter of methodology, I think, and that creates great momentum. And little by little, you'll see the transformation in how people are using the technology, how people are sharing their learning, how people are learning more. Hope it was helpful.